And it's actually from the book of Esther in the Bible of all places. It talks about Mordecai, who was a leader in that time.
A leader is also a light in the darkness.
I think differently, and now I believe in myself because I'm around him, and I think even more is possible.
Welcome to Leading Lubbock. Today's guest is Michalea Perez, the operating director at Cornerstone Caregiving, and someone whose leadership flows from a deep well of love, faith, and purpose. She's helped build something truly meaningful, serving seniors with dignity across Lubbock, Amarillo, and Clovis. But beyond the title and impact, Michalea is a devoted wife to Jaime and a proud mama to Canyon and Case. Her story is one of courage, calling, and the kind of quiet strength that makes a lasting difference. Ready to be influenced? Let's dive in. All right, I am so excited today. I've got a very special guest that one I get to do a little bit of life with.
Yes.
But we got Michalea with us. Thank you for being here today. I'm excited. I know you're such an influence in the world. In the short amount of time that I've gotten to know you, have seen some of your impact in the ways people talk about you and the way you lead them and influence them. And I just want to say thank you for your time to be here today, because this is going to be phenomenal. And I'm excited for more people to get to know who you are.
Well, I'm going to start with some tears there. That was so kind. Thank you for having me.
Well,
it's truly an honor.
Well, this is going to be fun, because I genuinely mean all of that. And I know your family, and I've gotten to know them, and they're incredible people. So every single one of them. You're very special. Okay. Well, I'd love for you to kind of just tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into it. Some of the highlights of Michalea.
Absolutely. Well, number one highlight is I have an amazing family. You mentioned that, but I'm just surrounded by some of God's best, I feel like. So my husband Jaime, and we have two little boys, Canyon and Case. They're 10 and 8. Truly the highlight of my days is raising those boys. I think Jaime would say the same thing.
Yeah, I can tell. Yeah, for sure. You spoke at Leadwell last year.
Yes.
And you had some incredible stories about, I believe it was Canyon.
Yes.
Am I correct in that? Yeah. And he just, seems like he is such a heart of gold.
He is, I just say, to be hugged or loved by Canyon, it just changes you.
Yeah.
It just softens a place in you didn't even know was hard. And anytime you get to spend with him, I just think, goodness, I'm better for it. I take a deep breath that I haven't taken in a while when I'm around him. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to get to know him more. It's going to be incredible.
I want you to.
Yes, we will. Okay, well, also leading a business.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so I started Cornerstone Caregiving in 2020, and we have grown every year. We've taken on a new location. So every 2 years, we've opened a new office, and just serving West Texas and Eastern New Mexico. And my heart, I love our senior population. And my heart is just to serve them and honor them for a life well lived. And it's just really cool, the opportunities that we've been given to be in people's homes, the place that maybe means the most to them, and just provide comfort in a time that it's a season of vulnerability, and just to be there and be present for it and give them as much dignity as we can in that it's truly one of the honors of my life. I never knew what God had for me. And I think I open my eyes in the morning and think, is this real life? I get to do this for a living. It's just really sweet.
That is incredible, because we're kind of jumping ahead, but we can go ahead and get into it, because I think this is already starting to crack the shell a little bit about what's underneath. And one thing that I'm already hearing that I love about you and your heart is there's just this servant nature of I'm not doing this because it's the business and this is how we feed our family, right? There's that need.
Oh, yeah.
Right. We got to work. We got to do the things to provide. And yet, when you talk about that excitement of going and serving that a population, a person, a situation in a setting that they feel comfortable in, and yes, vulnerable.
Oh.
I can't imagine the seasons they're in.
Beautiful.
What you're seeing and the conversations that you get to have. And that's amazing. And I'm sure we're going to see that kind of highlight in your story
For sure.
It's going to come out. It already has in the first 5 minutes. So we're on a good trajectory here. But I want to know from you and your perspective, what does effective leadership look like? And then really what got you to that point? Like, where did that start and how did that evolve?
So for me, servant leadership is just where it's at. And that I've had to learn over the years a lot of things about that, because servant leadership doesn't mean I do their job for them. It's a lot of times walking beside them, helping to equip them to learn those skills. Currently I'm reading 5 books at one time.
Really?
Each leader chose a book out of our list of leadership books, and I sit and read that with them. And so I take notes on things that they're really digging into and leaning into some hard things. And it's such a neat opportunity. It seems like a heavy lift, but it's really one of the most powerful times of my weeks, because I learn about myself and how I can lead them better, but then they're beginning to lead themselves. And so I have a guy that works for me. His name's Caden, and he started with me at 19 years old. He's just celebrated 4 years with us. And just to see him, to look back at 19-year-old Caden to today, it's a beautiful thing, but it's a lot of intentionality. It's getting in there and having the hard conversations. And I think servant leadership, the most powerful version of it, comes with equal parts clarity. And clear is kind, as Brene Brown says in this book. I have to be really clear with their job roles, their responsibilities, expected outcomes, because that humility piece can look in some ways like weakness if you're not careful. And so that clarity piece has to be equal parts of that.
Okay. So when you're talking the team that you're leading, and you said 5 different books, 5 different people.
Yes.
So you have 5 leaders that you feel kind of a responsibility for their development,
Yes.
their growth.
So I have a leadership team,
Okay.
that is right beneath me. So there's 3 of them, and then there are 4 managers on their teams. And so I was reading books with all of them, and then we're slowly handing off to the leadership team to where they're leading with them.
Okay.
And most of these books I've read. I had the opportunity to be at one of the most incredible companies in town for nearly a decade, and they taught me how to be a learning leader. And so a lot of these I get to kind of refresh my mind with them, but it's just so valuable. I think one of the things as a leader we can do best is learn constantly. It never stops.
Yeah, that's definitely a theme that I've heard sitting on the side of the table over and over again is just this. Yeah, I'm constantly reading. I'm constantly listening into podcasts or going to these retreats or to these conferences and having a learning mentality, like being teachable and pursuing that constantly. Yes. Another thing that comes to mind as you're talking, I love these types of conversations because I get to talk about what has been on my mind in the last week, because I feel like every time I walk in, it's like, actually, this couples in well with what has been on my heart over the last several days. And one of the things I've thought about is this idea of ripples, ripple effects that you have. And you're speaking into that as you're talking about leading leaders who are then leading others who will be leaders, and this ripple that just keeps going. And I was having a conversation with some people last week, and this idea of we all make ripples. Right. Every one of us create some kind of turbulence around us. And that could be good. It could be negative. And I just think about my kids love to skip rocks. So we'll go down to the lake. We live in Ransom Canyon. We'll go down to the lake, and they love just to attempt to get a rock skipping across the water. But no matter what they do, they create a ripple in the water. Whether it's the ripple they intended or something different. There's still a ripple that's made.
Absolutely.
If they make it to the water. Right. And then, of course, the size of the ripple depends on what they're throwing into the water. It could be a large boulder. It could be a small little pebble. Right. And the cool thing about what you're talking about is you are somebody who develops yourself. Even while developing other people, you're rereading these books that were impactful to you. To me, that means your rock is growing. You're building yourself up so that when you go out into the water, your ripple is much bigger. It's much wider because you're growing. We can stay small and throw our little pebbles in the water, and we're still going to make an impact, but it's not going to be as profound.
That's so good.
Or if we're not developing and we're kind of moving in the opposite direction, we're still going to create ripples, but they're not going to be effective. They're not going to be valuable to other people to grow. And so I love this about you. And I think, I hope that you continue to keep that heart, which I know you will, because you care about the people underneath, like in your company that you're leading. And so tell me about where that came from. Like, was that always Michalea, or was there things in your life that helped shape who you are today?
I think it's a lot of things. I have an incredible family. My parents are absolutely amazing and really raised me with the strength. You know, my dad was very loving but didn't rescue me. And I just really, from a young age, had a determination. And I think deep in my heart, I just wanted to love and lead people. I just want to love people really well and use whatever gift God has given me to do that to the best of my ability. And I think I see them as so valuable that I owe that to them for me to be my very best to lead them, you know? And whether they're with me forever or they're with me for a season, I hope, and I mean, I pull up at the business every single day and I look at the same place, this one door. I park in the same spot and I look at our front door and I immediately, it's like a trigger thing for me. God, I give this back to you. This is not mine. And where I've tried to take control, I pray that you come and you breathe life into it, your life. And it's just a good moment for me to pause and say, these lives, you know, we all pray for our kids to have amazing people that invest in them over time, right? We pray for their teachers. We're praying for their spouse. I'm praying for my kids' leaders, because the impact that they can have on them, you know, I look at it like, I don't care how old you are, your parents prayed for this, and I'm going to be what God calls me to be for them. And then when I get home, I'm going to do the same thing for my family. Have the same thing in my garage. I have a trigger point. I mean, our mat in my garage says home. And I know I discipline myself that when I see that, I'm home. And I am to them what I intend to be at work the whole time I'm there. So,
yeah, this idea of trigger points, that's so have you read the book Atomic Habits?
Yes.
Okay. James Clear, he talks about like creating habits on top of habits that already exist.
Yes.
Habit stacking. And I love that, like, you're pulling into the driveway, whether or not, like, that's a habit, right?
Right.
Or even just the necessity of, like, I got to get home. And so why not add something there that creates, like, this thought process of, like, this is what's next. This is, like, where I could pray or where I could be intentional.
Yes.
And what brought you to that point of, like, thinking, when I get home, I'm going to have this trigger point, or when I get to the office, I'm going to have this trigger? Was that an idea, or was that just something that just, like, slowly over time happened?
I'm just big on disciplines. I'm a very intense person, and I can be too intense. And God brought me the perfect spouse for that in life, because he is joy. I've never seen someone more joyful in my whole life. So I knew I had to create disciplines in myself to stop the cycle, stop the intensity of work. And I can be intense at home, but I am intense about raising godly men that are going to lead families. And so I had to let go of a lot of things. You know, I'm not the mom making homemade snacks and perfect birthday parties. It's not who I am, but I had to let go of that image of myself and know that what God was calling me to, I mean, I have gifts and I'm good at raising up leaders, you know, and not shrinking back from that. So at home, I run it a lot the same way. I mean, we have skylight frames, we do chores, and they have a lot of choice in their world. You can choose to do what I've asked you to do, and your weekend can have some screen time, or you can choose not to. And I think when I leaned into that and was able to know that I'm gifted in some ways, but I'm not gifted in others, and really act in those ways, I could create the disciplines that were like, okay, when I get home, I'm home. I can still be a little bit intense and a little bit disciplined, because that's how God made me.
Sure.
But I can also jump in the pool with all my clothes on, which I do regularly.
That's amazing.
And just shock my
Okay,
kids.
this is
Like,
awesome.
I'll come in business suit and all, and I go straight in the pool in their faces. Because I can be intense in that too. I just had to find my lane, and I had to find what that looked like day in and day out for me at home and at work. And
Yeah.
some of that's just stepping back out of the busy and saying, okay, I think I might be failing in this area. How do I fix it?
Wow. So I think anybody who listens to these regularly, these podcasts, they're starting to probably know the inner workings of Ruben, and like, oh, he's probably going to say this thing every time. I think something that's really been eye-opening to me is when God is talking to me, he talks to me in repetition. Like probably the most pronounced way is I'll just hear it multiple times within the same week. And this is this idea of being in your lane and being in your strengths and really thinking about the wirings that God has gifted you with. That has been more pronounced right now than it's ever been in my entire life. Has been in this last week, 2 weeks maybe. And so to even hear you talk about this and being okay with how God wired you and not even be okay in that, but to let your light shine in it is incredible, because I feel like a majority of my life I've lived like this, like just close-fisted and very determined. I want to, like, I'll compare myself to other people, what's happening in the world around me, and where I'm falling behind. Like, that's just kind of where I err. Unfortunately, I think that's where many of us err, is on the side of comparison and where am I lacking?
Yes.
Versus maybe even one would be contentment, right? But contentment in like, what am I excelling in? What do I have superpowers in, a strength in, and living out of that? And it's just incredible to me to hear you talking about, like, I got to give up stuff. And it's okay. Like, I got to be okay with not doing the snacks and not doing, like, maybe what the world may say you should be doing, or what other moms are doing, what other business women are doing. And so to just be comfortable in that, and not even just be comfortable, but to thrive in it. The world needs what you have to offer.
What you're saying is literally in my notes, which is so incredible, because I think that's just God confirming with me. I have a whole thing about I've spent so many years dimming my light to make other people more comfortable, or maybe make myself more comfortable. But I think owning that space for me has been such a game changer, because I think when like personality tests are great, and this test is great, and people speaking into your life is great, but sometimes you can get caught in that and it becomes a trap. And I had to really just say, like, I am who I am, and I'm not for everybody, and that's actually okay.
Right.
I don't have a ton of great friends. I have 2 really, really good friends. And I have Jaime, and I have great parents and incredible in-laws. But there are few people whose voice gets to really speak into my life. I'm very cautious and guarded. I have a mentor, Kathy Crockett, meets with me very often, and I have a counselor that I meet with every week. But I'm more guarded in that because my light is important, and what I have to offer the world. I'm not this amazing, I'm better than anyone else, but I know that God has put me in a place of leadership, and it is my responsibility to let that light shine. Whatever that looks like day in and day out. Sometimes that looks like taking out the trash for everybody. Literally.
Yes, yes.
So.
I got the privilege of getting to talk to Bob Goff. And I know you know who Bob is.
It's just my favorite person.
Incredible guy.
Yes.
And he mentioned the same thing. Sometimes, some of his joy comes from being the guy that gets people's trash, where it needs to be down his street, before they can get to it.
Yes.
And that is sometimes your giftings and the season and the time that you get to shine. And so I love that it's not always these big things as a leader. It's the little things. And man, I wish I could put you on a mic that just echoes over the whole world at the same time, that they just get to hear, like, be who you are, live out your strengths, be okay being different. And I know you have 2 small boys growing into men, right? They're in that process of developing mentally, physically, emotionally, and what better time to be able to speak it, because they're probably different, right? Two completely different
so
personalities.
Yes.
And Case we talked a little bit about Canyon and his strengths, but Case is probably just as much of a light and a beacon of joy in his own way.
Funny,
Just
right?
Really
Yeah. Funny.
Humor,
which can be good and also a challenge as a parent to keep in line.
Yes, yes, and we have four completely different humans that are doing their own thing, and there's no style that works for each one of them, and yet we can look at weaknesses and just be like, we gotta correct this. Like this thing is out of control.
Yes.
Or some things that I've done with my kids are just like, wow, how that can be used for good. Your stubbornness, my goodness, you will not do anything that your heart does not want to do.
That's right.
In a way that I've never seen anybody
right.
be able to shut down
Yes.
and lay on the floor because I'm not doing that. How can God use that? My goodness, when you're like justice driven and you're like, no, I'm not laying down to that. I am going to pursue that for good, for, and if it's, if we can channel these things correctly.
That's right. And goodness, does our world need that?
Yes. Man,
it's beautiful.
And the impact that we can have when we're all living out of our strengths, right? Not comparing weaknesses to each other. So I just wish I, again, put in a microphone over the world for them to hear that, and then just put it on repeat over and over again. So thank you for bringing that up. I didn't even know we were going there.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love that that's the direction we're both kind of thinking today.
Yes.
You talk about discipline, and I would love to know, on a daily basis, what does that look like for you? Because there in leadership, there's different styles of leadership too. And I would love to say I'm the most disciplined, and there's seasons that I am, but I would say for the most part, I'm not. I've got a passion and a drive to do things, but I'm not like the most disciplined. But on a daily basis, like, what does life for Michalea look like when it looks like for developing and for growth and for being who God created you to be? Like, what are practices or rhythms?
Yes. So a long time ago, one of my leaders at Betenbough had listened to something that Craig Rochelle had spoke about. And it was about creating habits, but it was just create one thing, conquer one thing. And it may take you a year, but conquer one thing. And then, so it's kind of Atomic Habits, but at a slower pace, maybe a little bit. And that really stuck with me. And so I've just done that over the years. And I get up at 5:20 every single day. And that's just, I just do it that I do it that I do it, because I need a quiet space. I need 40 minutes. And for me, that looks like time with the Lord. But I think that's important, because before the whole day gets crazy and started and my kids are up and maybe they slept well, maybe they didn't, I can just anticipate things a lot better. My husband's also very good at creating expectations and patterns. So my kids, mornings are never frantic at our house because of Jaime's discipline to create structure. And so that's helpful. But, like 3 years ago, I started drinking a gallon of water a day, and I just built it slowly. And now, I do it every single day, and I get up at 5:20. I've tried to layer those things so it's not overwhelming, and I don't ever quit. It's never going to stop now. So I think that's one of my things, is just bite off the smallest amount that you can chew and do it. People make fun of me when I walk in with my gallon water bottle everywhere I go. But I always say it's something I know I can conquer every day. Yeah. So I already have a win. I know I'm going to do that. I know I'm going to have a quiet time. And so I think for a leader, there's already so much pressure and stress. If I can just create those small pocket wins that are just like, I did it.
Yeah, checked it off.
No matter how the day ends up, I've done a couple things really well.
Yeah.
So.
And there's something about starting the day off too. And I know there's morning people and some that just don't do mornings. It's not for them. And there's a pattern though that I continue to hear, and that's like starting the day off maybe one step ahead, right? Rather than the frantic one step behind or several steps behind, and you're just trying to catch up.
Yep.
And so I think as you're leading people, whether that's your family or whether that's the people in your business, I think being one step ahead, having the lights on, having the coffee made,
yes,
having the greeting personality of like, hey, welcome in for the day, even your kids getting out of bed.
Yes.
rather than them waking you up or you waking them up in a hurry and getting out of the house. And it just can, I think it's the ripple, right?
Right.
It affects way more than just you.
Right.
It carries out.
And we're teaching our kids how to lead their days,
Yeah.
you know? So, and man, I don't want their day to be chaotic and stressful at the beginning and then expect them to go, okay, sit still and learn for 8 hours, you know?
Right.
We're training them to be men that lead families or women that lead businesses. And so I want them to understand they can choose how they start that.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think also having that spouse is highly effective and helpful. You know?
It is. Yeah.
I mean, one of my things is who I surround myself with makes more impact than anything in the world. And I have tried to be really intentional in life with who the Lord has put in my path at that season, that I am gaining all the knowledge that is intended for me during that time. So almost a decade at Betenbough, you better believe I believe I was under some of the best leaders in our city. And man, I took that in, you know, being under Rick Betenbough is life-changing. And I married the who that God intended me to marry. And someone that's not afraid of my success and does not ask me to shrink back. He instead just shows up, and me being on stage is okay for him, you know? And then in this business, I'm with 2 incredible businessmen. So I just think that who really, really matters, and those voices that you let speak into your life and, you know, live in your mind are very important, and you have to guard that.
Yes. Was there a time that light bulb went off for you, that like who you're with matters, and I need to kind of maybe even be very specific about the who's in my life?
I've always been a little bit of a loner.
Okay.
I'm extroverted, but I need my time by myself. And so I've always tended to be that way a little bit, but as I've gotten older, it certainly has shrunk a little bit. Just that trust factor and making sure, you know, I feel charged with leading these 16 people on a team and 300 caregivers. I feel a lot of weight of that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's my responsibility to be really careful with what gets my headspace, and because I need to be my very best for them. And if I'm living in negativity or someone's speaking a lot of negativity to me, that's not fair to them. And they didn't sign on for that.
Yeah. I love that the way that you talk about this is you've got to be very intentional about how you live your life and what's pouring into you, like what you're affected by, who you're with, what you're influencing, you're allowing yourself to be influenced by. But it's not for the sake of you. It's for the sake of the others around you.
That's
right.
right.
It's a bigger picture than that, which I think changes then the choices that you make when options come up of, you can go with this crowd, or you can consume this TV show or this music, or
Right.
you know, but I think when you have a bigger picture view of life and like who, it's not just me this affects, but it affects the people I'm leading and my kids. And
That's
I
right.
just love that you're thinking so much bigger than just the right now and the survival mode. I feel like you have such a big vision for the world and for your life.
I think some of that is even Bob Goff. I mean, how can you live and love out loud if that's not totally filling you? I mean, you can't. You can't give from an empty tank. And I think if you're not intentional with how that tank is filled, I mean, it affects every area of your life.
Yeah.
You just have to be careful and cautious. So
Love that intentionality. Was there a point in your life where there was like a pivotal moment, like in career or life in general, that had a major impact on you and who Michalea is today?
absolutely. I mean, I loved my job. I was a sales coach at Betenbough, and literally I thought, okay, like this is where I'm going to be forever. I love this. And in end of 2019, God told me it's time to resign. And I was like, wait. I'm hitting my 10 year, this, you know? And I waited a few months and tried to explain to the Lord why he was incorrect, but that did not pan out. And
Oddly enough, yeah.
in February of 2020, right before some big things happened in our world, I resigned, and that was pivotal and petrifying. My husband is a real estate agent, self-employed, and here we go into a really hard time in our world, and I just had to trust the Lord. I mean, from February to July, I did not know what I was going to do. I thought, well, I'll get my real estate license. I've sold homes, but I wasn't feeling a peace. And this came along, and it was one of those things. I've always loved the senior population, like loved them, could sit and talk for hours. And it came along, and I knew, okay, God, I see you. This is what you intended for me. And so I think that was pretty pivotal, that I listened and I obeyed, even though it was one of the scariest decisions I have ever made in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to leave. I loved it. I was comfortable. I was surrounded by incredible people. And,
Yeah. And taking the leap of faith.
Yeah.
Just responding to a call
and seeing that as the equipping season. It was an equipping season for what God had for me next. Rather than staying in the comfort. And comfort can be, I think, one of our biggest killers of what God has for us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking that, too, yesterday, having a conversation with somebody about not thinking too long on something. And I think there's this aspect of wisdom. I do think we need to pause for a little bit to evaluate something.
Absolutely.
And yet I think there's other things when you've got that tug in your heart, and it's the Spirit, God's Spirit saying, now is the time, and go. And I think being aware of that and sensitive to that sometimes it's like, I don't know why you're doing this or saying this, but it's go time. And it almost feels like that's some of the moments in your journey, maybe, of like just an obedience, a response in that of like, I don't know what's on the other side of this, right? But I trust that this is the direction I need to be going. Scary,
petrifying.
So yeah.
I always think back. Jackie White, our pastor at our church, he preached a sermon one time, and he talked about you move, God moves. Like, quit being stuck. Yes, you should pray about things, but quit being stuck. Because God is a God that can, if you take the wrong path, he can adjust, but get out there and love people. Make the choice to love people. Make the choice to make the hard decision and get out of your comfort zone. Yeah. Because very little growth happens there. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I've looked at it. Like, scary. Yeah. Let's go.
That's all. Like, I'm getting nervous as you're talking about it, because I'm like, there's things that I feel like that God is wanting me to do. Like, but I have to put myself out there for that, or I have to risk getting hurt or judged or whatever by doing that thing.
It's hard. And living in that tension of here's comfort and here's courage, and choosing that it's a hard place to be sometimes. Yeah. But I think that's where he wants us to be. I don't think we're ever supposed to be comfortable on this earth. I don't think that's what he called us to.
And man, if we all got out of our comfort zone, like,
can you imagine?
No, I can't imagine.
Like, how cool.
I mean, chaos, but in the best way. In the
very best way, you know? And I remember one of the things Rick Betenbough would always say is, like, I'm holding this with an open hand, because the minute I squeeze too hard, then I'm taking it back. And I think I can do more than he can. Yeah. And I think when we're doing this and we're squeezing hard, and not having an open hand, and I say this, like, I've got to remember sometimes people are just listening and they're not actually watching what I'm doing. So right now I have my hand like in a fist, right? And I'm thinking, this is the easy way to live. I'm going to hang on to the things. I'm going to hang on to my securities and my comfort and the things that I know are a little bit more predictable, versus this letting go, opening your palm and your fingers are stretched out, and putting my heart out there is a big risk, right? Because
Because now I'm even handing this over to you right now, and I'm saying, like, I'm going to be vulnerable with you for a second, and here it is, or this is the risk I'm taking. What you going to do with it? You know, are you going to handle that well, or are you going to attack me in that? And man, that could hurt. And so risk isn't just necessarily a financial risk. It's not am I going to have friends after this? It can be like an emotional,
Absolutely.
vulnerable, this could tear me down
That's
type
right.
thing. But at what risk of, like, if I could still impact somebody else,
That's
though?
right.
Like, what ripple effect happens whenever I do put myself out there to get hurt? And it's scary in so many ways,
Yes.
not just in the security aspect or letting go of comfort. It's I could legitimately get my heart broken,
Absolutely.
and my identity could be under attack by everybody.
Yes.
And so
It's actually something Kathy Crockett's working on me right now.
Yeah.
I had a session this week and it was a tough one. And I said something about, I feel like I teeter sometimes on burnout in certain areas of my life at any one time. And she said, from what I'm hearing you say, let's rename that. And I think it might be some grief. And as leaders, I think we grieve, right? Because we've put that out there, our hearts out there. We've been vulnerable. And it hurts. I mean, production's down, or someone leaves, or someone's upset. And we don't take that pause to say, man, that hurt. That hurt me, and I'm struggling with that, and grieve that moment. And so she's really working with me on, let's identify that.
Yeah.
Let's stop, let's pause, and let's be sad if we need to be sad. And then it can go to another place in our minds. But if we leave it up there rolling around, that's hard. And so I think vulnerability has to come hand in hand with being okay with grieving those moments and stopping the busy and doing that.
Yeah, the alternative is having enough grit to get through it,
Right.
and just keep muscling your way through. And yeah, without processing through those things, they just build up and then burn
Absolutely.
out.
That's right.
It happens. Man, reflection, I think pauses, I think people speaking into your life and being the ones to say, like, no, let me give you a different perspective, or hang on for a second, like, slow down and be in this moment, is so powerful. And I
Yes.
think not only leaders, but I think just us in general, we're just, let's go.
Yes.
We don't have time to pause. We don't have time to reflect. It's funny, Kathy's spoken to me, and she comes up a lot in these podcasts.
She probably does.
But one of the things that she was talking to me about was, like, how often have you taken, like, a day to just reflect? And I'm like, a full day? How many hours we thought? Like, a full day. And then even challenging, like, what if you took half a day to just pause and reflect and let your mind think and process? It's like, man, can we start with 15 minutes? Like,
Right.
this is tough. And yet just hearing the power of those moments of pausing and reflecting.
Yes.
And I think grief comes in that. And I think, like, vulnerable, like, you even allowing yourself to be vulnerable with yourself, like, to open your own heart to yourself. Like, I think that's how guarded we get sometimes. It's like,
Yes.
I'm not even just going to, that's a vault. We've shut that thing, and let's just keep it in there. I don't want to deal with it.
Absolutely.
And some of those pauses do encourage you or force you into dealing with it, opening the vault,
Yes.
seeing what's in there, kind of prodding around a little bit.
Yes.
So, yeah, not fun.
It's not. But it sure helps.
It does.
I get done and I'm like, okay, I needed that minute by myself to hurt.
Yeah. The power of having the right people in your life who's saying that you need it
Yep.
sometimes when you don't see it yourself.
That's exactly
or don't
right.
want to go there.
Yes.
Man. Okay. I think we could keep going all day. So just for the sake of, like, man, your time, and I feel like we have to wrap it up. I don't want to. But what's a lesson that you've learned along the way that's maybe you wish you would have learned way earlier on in your journey?
That's a good one. I mean, I think for me is continuing to walk in exactly how God made me to be. I think that one, I don't think leadership has to be complicated. And I think it's coming back to that very thing. Like, I don't need to try to be anything I'm not, and just be who He created me to be, because He is equipping me in that moment. If I'm fully leaning on Him and leaning into Him, He's going to equip me for where I'm at right then, and He's going to bring the right people.
Yeah.
And so I think that I wish I'd have learned that earlier and just been comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
I'm still trying.
Yeah.
I'm still learning that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we will be for the rest of our lives, because seasons are going to change, the situations and circumstances are going to change, and we're going to have to learn to adapt and to bring out our full potential in those moments, even when it's hard.
Yeah.
Like the easier option is to shrink back in this moment, and yet
Yeah.
the calling is to be myself, which may mean be bold. It may be something different, right?
That's exactly right.
And so that's wonderful. I think like that's a message that I've just heard on repeat from you today. Is this just like live out who you are to the fullest extent
Yes.
of who you are, with the risks that come with that too. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
I would love to talk about the book that you chose. When I asked you a book that really had an impact on you, you really wanted to talk about the Bible, and I didn't let you, just
It's
because
number one,
it
but-
is so influential, of course. And yet I wanted to dive into something too that maybe people haven't got their hands on, or something just to know like what else is impacting us. And you mentioned this book, Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about this book. Why has it had an impact on you? What are some of the principles you took out of it?
It's kind of what we've talked about just in here. Vulnerability, shame. It really addresses those at a very deep level. I've probably read it 6 times, and I'm reading it right now, and I've gotten a new thing. Just where I'm at in our process as a company, I've gotten a new thing. So we did permission slips at our leadership meeting last week, and walking in as leaders and giving ourselves permission to some tough stuff and setting the expectation ahead of the meeting. Mine was, I'm giving myself permission to say the really hard thing in here, and I'm probably going to step on some toes. And so what it did for my team was like, okay, I'm prepped for that. You know, one person said, I'm giving myself permission to ask the silly questions that I've been embarrassed to ask. And it is just incredible. And I'd never really read that part and thought, that's really good, until I needed it in that season. So she's just incredible at speaking to that vulnerability and kind of calling it out.
That's great.
So.
Okay. So kind of echoing a lot of what we talked about. This would probably be a good follow-up to read after having this conversation.
It's incredible.
Okay. Great. Well, I'm going to have you sign this before we leave, just with a quick message to whoever it is that's receiving it, and then we're going to give it away to somebody who just is following our Instagram page. So
It's incredible.
yeah, I'm excited. I haven't read it either. I've heard lots of amazing things about Brene Brown, and would love to, dive into that a little bit more too, because I think she's incredible as a leader and as somebody that does encourage you to maybe look inward a little bit more too. Like, what is your superpower?
Yes, and puts the science behind it. I like how
That's awesome.
she's a researcher, which I like.
Yes, that's helpful. Okay, well, I want to conclude with one question, and that is, what is Michalea's definition of leadership? If you could sum it up into a sentence.
I think leadership involves a whole lot of humility with equal parts vulnerability, and just a whole lot of love.
Yeah. Okay. So humility, equal parts humility and vulnerability. And I love that, because I've seen humility in every one of your answers here. Like, this is not about you. This podcast has been about everybody that you lead, and all your kids, and the ripple effects that you have. And then you talk about, you don't have to be vulnerable with everybody, right? But being vulnerable in those situations that is required.
Absolutely.
And the risk, even like putting yourself out there with that vulnerability. So I love that. And I hear care in every single answer. I see care in the way that you lead people. You do it well. And I think that's what people desire. And I know when we create businesses, yes, there's the financial sides of them, and the economic models and the organizational models, and you got to really structure it well. You have to have good systems, and none of it really matters unless people within your organization, or the people who are affected, your clients and your customers, the population, feels the care that's distributed from that company. And so I love the direction all of that took in that answer, and you embody that.
Thank you.
See it all over you. And so keep doing what you're doing, and I'm excited that people get to listen into this. This was really special.
Good.
So,
Thank you for having me. And I mean, when do we get to interview you? Because I think everyone needs to hear this.
they get to hear enough. They get to hear enough of me.
I think we need to flip the switch and have we get to
well,
interview the podcaster.
That would be fun. I would enjoy that. But that means a lot. Thank
The world
you so
needs to
much.
hear it.
Well,
You have a lot of wisdom.
well, thank you. Well, a lot of it comes from being on the side of the table and learning from those who are doing it. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for the time and sharing your husband here at Clear Rock. Because
I mean,
for those who don't know, Jaime is an agent here with us, and he is a light here too. So, everything you're talking about him, we get to witness it firsthand as well. So I love that, and your family's beautiful. You're doing an amazing job being a mom and pouring into these young men, and then just serving the people around you. So
well, thank you for leading Jaime and the impact. It's huge, and it makes a difference in our family. So I do mean it. We need to flip the mic because there's a lot to unpack there.
well, thank you. Okay, well, thanks again for being
Absolutely.
on. Appreciate you.
Thank you.